Welcome in to Up in the Rafters, a podcast brought to you this basketball season by our friends over at Johnny T-Shirt. Co-hosting this, I'm Taylor Vippolis, and this year I'm joined, as always, by a national champion, most outstanding player of the Final Four, Carolina basketball legend, the ACC Network's Joel Berry. Joel, before we talk about basketball, how was your Thanksgiving weekend?
Man, my Thanksgiving was good. It's just good to be around family, man. Good to have some time off to be able to watch all the games and watch football going on, man. It's just a great time to just be thankful for the folks around you and the people that are supporting you.
Yeah, mine wasn't as good. I had to spend the weekend in Raleigh for the UNC football game, and I'm
Oh
at the
man.
I'm at the point right now where talking about this basketball team is the highlight of my week.
Right. I'm sure. I'm sure, man. That game, oh man, that game it was bad. It was bad. It was weird too.
Yeah,
Very weird game. I was my last the I stopped watching after they came out of halftime and re-kicked the field goal. I
yeah.
said, yeah, something's not right over there at NC State tonight.
So inside Carolina, they split up their team where half the people went to the Bahamas to cover Carolina in the battle for Atlantis, and then half the team was in Raleigh to cover the season finale for Carolina football. And like halfway through the third quarter, I'm just sitting there like, I wish
I
I was in
could
the
be in the
Bahamas.
Bahamas. How did y'all? I mean, how did they do that? Is this like a draw or something, or like
Yeah, I think I
veteran
just got the
status?
short end. I think I just got the short end of the stick there. But
Gosh.
but Carolina goes to the battle for Atlantis. They finish in third place. They win the third place game against Arkansas. What were your biggest takeaways from the before we talk about each game? What were your biggest takeaways just from the 3 days of basketball for Carolina?
I just think we really just you could take away a lot of positive from this tournament. I know the ultimate goal for them was to win the tournament, but when you're talking about early in this season where teams are still finding themselves trying to identify how they want to play and what their identity is on both sides of the ball, I just thought overall Carolina competed. The competitiveness was there, the toughness, the physicality was there, and then we just saw something that was really of a concern last year is what can Carolina get from the bench? And you had Seth Trimble come off and really just be productive. I think that's a positive we can take out of this the tournament. And then Paxton Wojcik, he's been struggling trying to find his way, trying to get comfortable within this program, and he stepped up in big ways with having Cormac Ryan out. I would go as far as to say Harrison Ingram looks like one of the best transfers in the country right now. He really stepped up and played well. And I just like the competitiveness that he showed, telling the people they're too small. Like, you didn't see any of that last year. It was just like every man's for themselves. In this tournament, you really just saw a togetherness, guys competing. I can go on and on about it because there was so much positivity, but this was a really good step in a good direction that Carolina is going in, and I just was really impressed with how they played.
I From that Villanova game, I loved the two small celebrations where every time Carolina would hit a layup, they would go to it, not kind of realizing that Villanova was just trying to take them into the paint the entire game.
The
But
whole time.
sometimes you need that confidence.
Yeah, you do, man. Villanova was playing like old man basketball, man. Like, you know what? These legs are a little tired. Let me put this butt on you and get you down here in the paint.
And then Cormac Ryan would hit a shot on the other end and immediately go to the too small celebration. But yeah, I think one of the points that you made was my biggest takeaway from this weekend, where this team plays with a fire and intensity that we didn't see in the year prior. And how much of that do you think is due to the people that are brought in? Because when you're watching the games and you're watching for where this fight is coming from, it's Cormac Ryan, it's Harrison Ingram, it's Elliot Cadeau. The new guys' impact on this team.
Yeah, obviously this is about the players, and you want the players to enjoy what they're doing and enjoy being at Carolina. And I just felt at times last year, that guys kind of were lost in themselves, trying to still find their way. You got the outside media, you got guys like us talking about basketball, talking about the team. And sometimes that can get in your head and mess with you a little bit. And I just think when I look at those guys departing from last year, I think it was a mutual thing because you want those guys to be somewhere where they can play and also just have fun and be a kid and still love the game of basketball. And so I just think with those guys going out and this new group, man, you just really see that this is a team that's together. And you have guys like Cormac Ryan, Harrison Ingram, Jalen Withers. They're coming from programs where they didn't win. So they have that hunger to want to win. They want to feel the winning side of things. And I just think that type of sense of urgency really helps you into defining what you're, sticking to your role and really being about the team and not so much about yourself. And that's what we saw in the battle for Atlantis is those guys just trying to figure out how and what can I do to make this team a little bit better. So I just think that sense of urgency, just wanting to win, that's what we saw, and that's what these guys bring to the team as far as the transfers.
Carolina opened the battle for Atlantis in a game against Northern Iowa. They trailed by 6 at halftime. There's a feeling in that game from the Carolina fan perspective of being like, oh no, a little nervous. And then they win the second half by 28. What did you see that fueled the second half performance from UNC?
Yeah, they just got out. They started defending better. They had a couple of possessions or a handful of possessions where they almost got shot clock violations. So just that sense of urgency coming out of halftime, making those adjustments to what UNI was doing, just shows the maturity of the team. And then they just offensively, like in the first half, I thought they were getting really good looks in that game. It just wasn't hitting. Cormac Ryan was missing some like easy 3-pointers. Harrison Ingram was missing. RJ Davis was missing. But in that second half, we saw the shots started falling. And I mean, it was in bunches, and Northern Iowa couldn't do anything about it. So I think that was the biggest difference, is picking up the defensive end, not letting UNI get comfortable. And then offensively, they started making those shots, and really it's kind of like they just settled into the game.
You said UNI, and I had to do a double take for a second because I thought you were talking about you and I.
And I
was like, where are we out there?
Hey man, it's that Drake song out there that says you and I don't know what song it is, but yeah, man. And it's crazy because I thought about, like, when Drake said that in one of his songs, I thought about that because that was like one of the worst games in my college career when we went up there to celebrate Marcus Page and we got our butts kicked.
The rare Marcus Page celebration game where he was hurt and
he didn't even play. Yeah, so I'm glad the guys were able to get it done and didn't have to have that feeling.
One of the things that a lot of fans have been waiting for is that Cormac Ryan game where he shoots the ball well, because he was such a great shooter at Notre Dame and struggled to open the season, but he kind of had that moment in the second half against Northern Iowa where he shoots 3 of 8 from 3 and fuels that second half comeback for the Tar Heels. As a former player, when your shot isn't falling, how do you maintain playing with confidence and shooting the ball with confidence?
Yeah, at that point, when you just don't have the confidence and you really don't feel that your shot is there, I think it's best to just continue to just play the game the right way, because then you can start forcing shots and shooting shots that you wouldn't shoot on a regular basis, and then that just makes it a little bit worse. And so what I loved what Cormac did was he just stayed within himself. He knows that he's a two-way guy. You know, it's not just him offensively. He's a guy that can get after you defensively. And sometimes having to be on the other side of the court and really pick up the intensity defensively gets you going on the offensive end. So, you just don't want to press when it comes down to not hitting the shots that you usually hit. And we saw in that second half, in the first half, he just picked up his defensive intensity. The second half, he came out and he was ready to go, shooting shots within the offense, within rhythm. And sometimes that's part of the equation too, is learning your teammate, knowing where they want it in their shot pocket, where they need to have it coming off a screen or a pin down or whatever. And we just saw that coming out in the second half. And I don't know if Coach Davis and the staff talked about him needing to get going, but I like how they came out in the second half and went straight to him and then allowed him to continue to go after it. I mean, he missed his shot after the second one, but it looks like it might have been some emphasis on getting him the ball to get him going.
Yeah, you mentioned that there's so many other ways that he can impact the game, and Hubert Davis said something pretty similar in his press conference after the game, where he said Cormac is a basketball player. There's 50,000 things that he does to help our team out. One of them is his ability to shoot, but he does so much for us in terms of leadership, defense, passing, rebounding. So to talk about a slow start and to characterize it only because of shooting coming from a guy that when I played, people just focused on the shot and not the other things that I could do to help the team. I'm just sticking up for my guys. You love to see a coach who's going to have their players back like that. And one of the things I'm curious about, Carolina goes into halftime down 6. From your experience, when your team isn't playing up to the standard that that they could be playing, have you ever been in a halftime locker room when a coach is about to come in, you're like, I'm a little scared for what they're about to say and what could happen?
Yeah, it is a little scary, but it's just a part of the game sometimes, and you have to, you got guys, your leaders who are in the locker room talking, and then sometimes it's just best to let guys dissect and kind of feel the moment a little bit. And I think that's very important, is to feel like, okay, we have to go back in the second half and we can't allow this to happen. But you're sitting there, you don't know how coach is getting ready to come into the locker room. And so you just got to sit there. A lot of the times I have my head down. Some guys are just trying to be in their feelings a little bit. And you're just like dreading coach coming in. But what you have to do is you got to listen to what he says and not how he says it, because he's coming in with some fire, because we haven't played and they haven't played up to their expectations. And if I know anything about Coach Davis, he loves to start off talking like this, and then it gets loud all of a sudden. So I'm pretty sure a little bit of that was going on in there. But the guys, what I loved is that they respond. If that was the case, they responded to it. And that's how you have to come out in the second half. And that's just a sign of a mature team that understands the moment. But I'm sure Coach Davis was getting on them.
Yeah. Every game, from what you're looking to take away, and the positive for this Carolina team is every game they've seen some adversity and they've been able to handle the adversity, where it kind of goes back to that point about the fight that this team has, where it never really feels like they're out of a game.
Yeah.
And that has to be encouraging going forward. But the Northern Iowa game, Seth Trimble starts. What did you think of the decision to start Seth Trimble? And then kind of bigger picture, looking at the weekend, Jalen Withers starts the next game. And then the final game with Cormac Ryan out, you have Withers and Ellie Cadeau starting. Just Carolina trying to shuffle this starting lineup and figure out who that fifth person should be.
Yeah, and I think Coach Davis said it in one of his interviews that, the one thing about this team is that they're competitive, and that any guy on this team that we saw get on the floor can start. And there might have been some things going on in practice where Seth Trimble earned those minutes, earned the chance to start. But I just like to my point earlier, I think a lot of teams are still trying to figure out themselves. And when you have, so many guys go out of the program, and you have, the transfers coming in, you have to kind of play with lineups. And I just think Coach Davis and his staff realizes how much they have. And I think I mentioned this in our first podcast, but some lineups just play better with one another. And so sometimes it's not necessarily the player that's messing up the lineup. It could just be that guys work a little bit better when they're playing with certain guys. Like I thought, we'll get into it, but I thought Elliott and RJ played really well together. And I would love to see that pairing a little bit more. But I love seeing that they're just trying to mix things up. And at the end of the day, if you're a guy and you feel like you need to start, you're like, okay, I'll take notice of that. How can I get my chance? And it just keeps that competitive nature there. I know it won't always be like that, but early in this season, they're still trying to figure out what lineups work with one another.
The second game in Battle for Atlantis, Carolina loses 83-81 to Villanova in overtime. The Villanova game, everybody's in foul trouble. As a player, how do you manage that when you're playing a team like Villanova that wants to be physical, but you also have to be conscious of the fact that the refs are calling everything, every little foul they're calling.
Yeah, that's a tough game, man. That's especially when you're not facing many teams that back you down, especially from the guard position like Villanova does. And then you throw in what Eric Dixon can do from the outside. It just makes it really hard because naturally Armando is so used to playing at the rim that you got a guy backing down, and now you got to go guard somebody. They kick it out to a 5-man that's on the wing. I mean, when do you ever guard against that? And so that's tough, but Carolina for most of the part did a good job, but it's just once it's already going, it's hard to stop. And then the last thing you want to do is, the game is physical. The refs are calling fouls. You don't want to start complaining to the refs, and then all of a sudden it starts becoming a bickering match, and you're more worried about the refs than actually playing the game. So I thought that they handled it well. You try to look at some of the changes they could have made. Could they have gone zone like Penn did against them early in the year? Yes. But does Carolina work on zone? I don't know, and so their bread and butter is man to man. So I just thought they handled it well instead of just getting, mad at the refs and not actually playing the game and worrying about what the refs are doing.
Yeah, I think this is a game where in an early season tournament, you trust what you're most confident in, and that Carolina's most confident in man to man. But it would be something like if they played him in the NCAA tournament with like a week to prepare, maybe then you do see the zone where it's more of a matchup type thing. But early season tournament, I think you're going to go with what you're the most confident in at that point, especially not knowing who you were going to play the next day in this battle for Atlantis setup. But the one area I think that you can be a bit critical, because it does seem like it's a lack of attention of detail. The fouling the 3-point shooters. I think that's the only thing that was the only note that I kind of made. Like, this is something that Carolina can clean up and probably will clean up very easily.
Yeah, and it's you like the effort, but you also have to have the discipline, to your point, to be able to close out under control and not foul the shot. The only one that I can give a pass to is Armando, because you talk about a 5-man when he did that move against Armando with the between the legs step back. I mean, when is Armando guarding that in practice? And last year he wasn't guarding anything like that. I mean, I think the closest thing that he probably or person he had to guard like that was Brady Manick, but Brady Manick was more catch and shoot than doing all the Kyrie to the step back three with the left hand. I mean, it's unorthodox all over the place. So he's the only one that I can give a pass to. And you said something that was pretty interesting, having to get ready for teams. This really tests like how much your team can dissect the scouting report, because you're going back to back days when you're not doing that during the season. So that really shows how can my team adjust and dissect our the scouting reports, because you're going back that night at snack you're looking at film of the other team getting ready for tomorrow's game. So, they did a good job, but to your point, fouling the 3-point shots, that's just a lack of discipline and something that needs to be cleaned up.
Yeah, Eric Dixon was going to be a tough cover for anybody on this Carolina team. He finishes 34 points, 10 rebounds. I have a stat from Steve Kirshner. UNC was called for 72 fouls in the last 3 games in the battle for Atlantis. It's the most fouls UNC has committed over 3 games since committing 72 against Pittsburgh, Providence, and Iowa State to end the 2013-2014 season.
That's a great stat, by the way.
Yeah. Kirsch is
He's
full
on
of
it.
great stats. Yeah. And then Villanova, not only was Carolina fouling Villanova, but Villanova, great free throw shooting team, 32 of 36 from the free throw line, where they're really gonna punish you for fouling. But Carolina led by 9 in the second half. I thought there were some questionable calls that went in favor of Villanova to kind of get Villanova back in the game. But what did you see happen that Carolina couldn't really maintain that lead in the second half against Villanova?
Well, it's just, it's when you're going down and you're being challenged defensively, and then you also, Villanova is a good guarding team. They challenge you offensively as well. Sometimes that can get into your legs a little bit, and I think that's probably what happened. And then, with the foul trouble, it's hard, man, when you're playing against the refs and playing against the other team. It feels like you're going against everybody on the court except for your teammates. And so, you're trying to keep your hands up. You're a little, you're trying to let go a little bit. And sometimes that can just play a huge role. And mentally it's in the back of your head when you're trying to guard someone and okay, if I touch them, I'm going to get fouled. So I thought a lot of that probably had to go into it with just the fouling situation. But I thought Carolina, they stayed in the game. I'm gonna make a hot take here. I thought Coach Davis, when they had the ball going in overtime, I thought he shouldn't have called a timeout. I thought that he should have let the guys play it out because it's hard to run a set in the half court when it's 3 seconds left to get something going towards the basket because they were in the bonus. And so I thought they should have let it play out and just see what they could do against an advantage in a transition situation. But I thought Carolina did a good job. It just came down to, those last second plays.
Yeah, it was a good effort from Carolina. Eventually, going into overtime, they just ran out of players. Harrison Ingram fouls out, Jalen Withers fouls out, and then Elliot Cadeau fouls out in overtime. But quick break to talk about our friends at Johnny T-Shirt. If you're going to be in Chapel Hill for the Tennessee game, visit Johnny T-Shirt on Franklin Street. If you're not going to be there, you can visit them online at johnnytshirt.com. As basketball season gets underway, they have everything that you could possibly want. They have the hats, the jerseys, the T-shirts, you name it, they've got it just in time for the holiday season. Great people, great customer service, and don't forget, Inside Carolina premium subscribers save 10% off their orders. So the final game, the third place game in Battle for Atlantis, Carolina goes up against a ranked Arkansas team led by Coach Musselman. How much or what do you think we learned about this team in the way that they responded to their first loss of the season, bouncing back in such a strong way against Arkansas?
Yeah, I love the way that they responded with knowing that there was another opportunity to get a big time win. Arkansas is a good team. They're still trying to find their way with so many transfers coming in, but it's still a very well coached team. They get after you defensively. They have some scorers on the team that can get buckets, and one guy in particular, Trayvon Mark. I mean, he was getting buckets and putting that thing in the orange hole, like, and there's nothing that it was hard for Carolina to stop them. But I thought the effort and the bounce back, realizing what was at stake and what they could do, I thought that was huge because this would go down as a quality win for Carolina when you're looking at the resume down the line.
Yeah, it was a great win by Carolina. Carolina wins by 15 points in this game. RJ Davis was the leading scorer in Carolina's final 2 games. Offensively, what did you see that was working so well for Davis, where he scores 23 against Villanova and then he ties a career high with 30 in this game against Arkansas?
RJ played with great pace. He really didn't force anything. And if it did, it was just, it was just being him, knowing that he had the hot hand this game. But I thought he played really well, man. I said it earlier. I like him and Elliott together. I thought one play in particular when RJ got he got it on the sideline. Elliott threw a cross court pass to RJ and he attacked with quickness and went right to to the basket for a layup. Like, I think that's where Carolina can be great with Elliott being able to throw those hit aheads. But RJ played great, man. He was unstoppable. And it was, it was something that we haven't seen since his sophomore year, having a game like that. So he played amazing, and they will need him to step up each and every game that way.
Yeah, the two spots where I really like seeing RJ Davis and wish I had synergy to check the advanced numbers on some of these possessions, but I love him in that high pick and roll with Armando Bacot where you can get him downhill and attacking the basket. And then I love him in these catch and shoot situations where he gets the ball triple threat position and can attack, can shoot, can pass out of it. The Cadeau Davis pairing, that's another thing I want to see more of those numbers and how they do on the court together, because I agree with you where it passes the eye test where Carolina, that looks like their most efficient offense when those two are out on the court together.
Yeah.
Can the Davis Cadeau backcourt work defensively?
And that's the hard part is, you can think about the offensive end, but basketball is two sides of the floor. And so you got to think, defensively, is that lineup too small? But I just think with the modern day basketball, with so many ball screens and so many, dribble handoffs, you're already switching that stuff. And so you might have a mismatch already just coming off of an initial ball screen. So I think it can work. I don't, you definitely have to play with it and throw in, a bigger lineup, but I think, for maybe 10 or 15 minutes of a game, I think it could be, it can work. And like you said, the catch and shoot, I did look up on Synergy. Carolina is shooting 38.6% out of catch and shoot situations. So they're playing really good with guys sharing the ball and being able to play out of those situations. And then also they're shooting 36.9% from the 3-point line, something that was missing last year. So those catch and shoot situations are great. And when you have a guy like Elliott and RJ playing together, you get those opportunities. And I think RJ in this tournament was at his best when he was able to play out of catch and shoot situations.
Yeah, and there's an unselfishness to this team right now in the way that they're playing, where it just looks like five guys out there that are every possession looking to get the best shot, which is not something that we could say for how Carolina was playing at times last year. And
yeah,
I think one of the biggest reasons for that is you bring in somebody like Elliott Cadeau with his passing skills. The first 3 games of the season, we talked about maybe the nerves of playing as a freshman. His assist to turnover ratio was 8-8. He goes to the Bahamas. His assist to turnover ratio 11-1. What did you see from Carolina's freshman in these 3 games from the Bahamas, and that could be encouraging for a sign of his growth?
Well, growing through the season is watching film and learning from your mistakes, and that's the biggest thing. And when you're in film session, you have to be able to see what you're doing and dissect what you're doing. And I just think, as the season goes along, the more film he watches, the more situations that he's in, ball screen situations, he will just continue to get better and better. And it's just part of him being able to pass the ball, but you also have to know when to pass the ball, and know when, okay, maybe I might have to take this back a little bit, not make this pass. I'll get it next time. So you just start learning different situations and knowing when to deliver the ball. And that's what I was saying about RJ and him on the court together. When he's throwing those kick aheads, it allows the defense it allows the offense to be able to attack in transition. And then if they don't have anything, you can always set it back up. So I just think him understanding when to pass, when to be aggressive, when to say, hey, you know what, maybe another time. I just think that's just part of development and part of watching film. I can attest to it. In high school, you don't watch any film. And so now you're having to understand, you got to go out there and watch yourself, see some of the passes that you're making. So that development will come. And it seems like the coaching staff have done a great job of sitting him down in front of a computer and seeing, what passes can be made and when it's time to, just look for another time.
high school, the most film you're watching is what you're going to put in your mixtape, right?
Exactly. That's all you're watching. Like, oh yeah, right there. Put that one in right there. I got his ankles on that one. You're not watching yourself coming off a ball screen trying to dissect what the weak side is doing. You're not doing that.
I think one of the interesting things about the battle for Atlantis is Carolina wins 2 games. They're competitive in the Villanova loss, and Armando Bacot doesn't put up big numbers. Northern Iowa, he goes for 10-8. Villanova 8-18, and then against Arkansas, he goes for 9-4. He shoots 37% from the field, which is a considerable dip from where he's normally at. But I think with the depth on this team, they don't need the Armando Bacot performances that we've seen in years past. So from these 3 games, what did you kind of take away from Armando's game?
Yeah, I thought the teams made it really tough for him. You know, he's going to be at the top of the scouting report every single game. And now there's a huge scouting report. I mean, it's his 5th year. I mean, there are scouting reports being passed up under the table, coaches talking. I mean, it's all of that. So it's not a hidden thing anymore of what he can do. And I just thought teams did a great job of just staying between him and the basket, making him finish over. You know, Armando doesn't have off the chart athleticism. So, he just has a wide frame and can really put you in hard situations if you let him catch a deep catch. And I just thought teams made it really tough for him. But you made a good point in that this team just has so many weapons to where they don't have to depend on Armando Bacot like they did in the past. And I think that's a good thing, though, because there are times where he's going to have his opportunities. But, it's hard to say just in 3 games that Armando Bacot is not having a great season. I think he's having a phenomenal season, especially before they got to the battle for Atlantis. His numbers were video game numbers. So I just think sometimes you go through a slump, and I think they'll go back and look at film and see how can they get him the ball in different situations and easier situations. But it's tough to see him play like this, but it's just part of basketball and part of a season, and they'll go back and make the adjustments to be able to get him the ball. But like we said, other guys stepped up and played well. So it's a good sign that you're able to still have a positive outlook with one of your best players not playing their best.
Yeah, and I think if you're Carolina, you're more than willing to trade some of Armando Bacot's production for a more balanced team game, and they're coming out
100%.
with wins. And yeah, and they didn't come out with the win in the Villanova game, but again, they're leading by almost double digits in the second half. That's a game that they can close out more often than not. But one of the players that stepped up, and I think has been the biggest sign of positivity from this Carolina team through 6 games. Harrison Ingram, he looked like the best player for this Carolina team in the Battle for Atlantis tournament. His ability to post up, his ability to pass out of those post ups, those cross court passes out of the post. Is Harrison Ingram the best player on this Carolina team?
Oh, that's a hard one. I think from the standpoint when you're looking like all around, I think he is the best player on this team. He brings so much to the table. He's hit double figures in all games so far this season. The amount of production that you get out of him, I don't know what his offensive rating is, but I'm sure it's pretty high.
It's high.
Because he does a lot, and it's not.
I also don't have the numbers, but I can also tell you it's pretty high.
Yeah, it has to be pretty high because I mean he does it all. He's defensively, but you look at the offensive end. I mean, he can come out. He has the vision to play in a pick and roll. If he's not in the pick and roll, just look at the end of the game against Arkansas. They were just putting him in a post up situation and saying, "Hey, Arkansas, you either come in double team and we'll hit somebody else out of a catch and shoot situation, or you don't double team and you come and you get this bucket from Harrison Ingram." And that's really what they were doing. And he just presents a matchup that's just that's really hard because of what he can do. So I will say I can go to say he is the best player on this team from an all around production because of how much he gives you on both ends of the floor.
Before we wrap up, a big shout out to our friends at Congruity. Congruity is a North Carolina based national coverage, local presence company with personal support straight from the Tar Heel State. Congruity is empowering small and mid sized business owners with HR and payroll outsourcing, enabling you to grow your business while they take care of your greatest assets, your people. And they are doing it with top of the line technology and services for every stage of your business's growth with a state-of-the-art online platform. Congruity, they are obsessed with customer service where they become part of your team. They do the heavy lifting, providing essential admin support with a single point of contact and support available on demand with services that are tailor-made for you, transforming your organization. Congruity has helped hundreds of businesses improve and enhance their day-to-day lives, level up your HR capabilities, save money, unlock game-changing growth. Visit congruityhr.com/Tar Heels to learn all about Congruity. Fill out a quick form to be connected to their consultants, and they'll give Inside Carolina listeners or viewers a payroll and HR assessment for free. That's congruityhr.com/Tar Heels, congruityhr.com/Tar Heels. All right, back to the episode. In Carolina, they're coming back from relaxation in the Bahamas, where their last game was against a ranked Arkansas team. Arkansas was ranked 20th at the time. No time to slow down, because coming to Chapel Hill, it's the number 10 team in the country, the Tennessee Volunteers. How does Carolina match up with Tennessee in this ACC SEC challenge?
I think guard-wise, they match up really well with Tennessee's guards. I think Zakai Ziegler is a guy for Tennessee that matches up well with either RJ or Elliott. You have Dalton Knecht, who matches up well with Harrison Ingram or even Cormac Ryan. They're a team that shoots a ton of threes. I think out in Maui, they shot 63 threes. They only made 17 of them, but they get them up, though. And it's just one thing I know for sure that is a non-negotiable for Tennessee is the physicality. And that will be from the jump. Like literally as soon as the ball is tipped off, they will hit you. And I know that from personal experience that they will. So this team matches. I think they match up well. This is a really good team coming into town. And I think the battle will be won in the backcourt is whose backcourt can really stand out and play well. So it'll be fun to watch, but it'll be a very physical game. Hopefully they can learn something from the Villanova game, because I thought that game was very physical as well. But this Tennessee team is very physical, and I think Carolina matches up with them pretty well.
We'll see how that plays out. Wednesday, Tennessee coming to Chapel Hill, coming to the Dean Dome. 7:15 tip on ESPN. Joe, appreciate the time as always, man, and appreciate everybody watching and listening.
Yep. Enjoy always.